Afternoon, everybody. It's good to see you again. Metaphorically speaking, of course. I'm coming to you today from my bedroom. Yeah, I'm a day early. It's Sunday afternoon, and I'm recording a day early because I'll be out all day tomorrow working at my other job, teaching at the local high school. So I'm recording and posting this a day early, and you'll be watching it in the usual time. But today is the Lord's Day for me. Uh, it was Reformation Sunday, and we had a good worship service at our church today, reflecting on Romans 3 19 to 28. For our righteousness of God is revealed apart from the law. And it was wonderful. And that's a good place, I think, to start today. You'll note that in the reader readings for today, there was no uh, reading pertaining to creation in the McGrath reader. Rather, you had a section on immutability, which is probably the major issue for the doctrine of God in contemporary discussions, from Hans Kung, and a selection from Philip Melanchthon on justification by faith. The Melanchthon reading is there simply because of the time of the year, and I commend it to you and hope you enjoy it. The Odin chapter on creation is, again, I think, a very helpful introduction. It is not elaborate. It's kind of a Joe Friday chapter, just the facts, ma'am. And I did find it that, for me at least, it does not begin well. Odin really only begins to hit his stride and about halfway through, and from there it does get markedly better. I think the weakest part of the chapter is when he is reflecting on the nature of causation in the relationship between God and creation. Uh, I, we might bolster that section a little bit by thinking through Thomas Aquinas's taking up of Aristotle's four views of causation to describe the God-world relationship. That is to say, he regards God as the formal cause, the material cause, the efficient cause, and the final cause for the universe. By formal cause, we mean that the universe's internal logic, its rationality, its structure, is a gift, if you wish, from God. It is brought about by God. In that sense, God is the formal cause of the universe. The material cause, here, God provides the material out of which the universe is made. Of course, we're speaking here especially analogically because you think, that usually a material cause, you think a wood is the material cause of a chair, for example. Here, we're not talking about that. In fact, we're deliberately not talking about that because the biblical and Christian tradition affirms that creation is not divine. But when we say God is the material cause of the universe, we mean to say that God provides the universe its material being. Without God, there would be no matter which would be formed into the universe that we know, in which we live. So God is the formal cause, God is the material cause, God is the efficient cause. God does not simply provide the primordial stuff and then allow the angels to fashion it. You might think here of Tolkien's lovely creation account in the Silmarillion, where creation is brought about by the singing of the Valar. Rather, God brings about everything through the power of his word. He is the efficient cause. And then finally, God is the final cause. God is the goal towards which creation is aimed or directed, and in that direction finds its meaning. So creation has no meaning in and of itself. Creation's meaning lies in the fact that it is caused by, oriented toward God. So God is the formal, material, efficient, and final cause of creation. All of this goes to underscore the relationship of radical dependence of all creation upon God, not simply for its coming into being, but its ongoing existence moment by moment insofar as it continually receives its being from God. I don't think Odin handles that section terribly well, but it's important for us to dwell on it a little bit so that we can have a good understanding of providence, which we'll talk about next week, God's ongoing care of creation. Um, it is tempting, I think, sometimes to think that God created the world and established laws by which the world runs, and then leaves the world basically alone to run according to those laws. And if things go awry, or if people pray or whatever, God intervenes to tweak things, set things back on track, or something like that. But the deployment of Aristotle's four understandings of causation help us to realize that's not, I think, an accurate understanding of the Bible's portrayal of the God-world relationship. Rather, the universe exists moment by moment in radical dependence upon its first cause, who is God. And of course, you use that language deliberately. You will see, I think, in St. Thomas's Five Ways, echoes of Aristotle's four understandings of causation. So I just leave that to you. One thing that I did appreciate about Odin is his willingness to move beyond Genesis 1 and 2 in his speaking about creation, in taking up creation themes in the prophets. This is particularly important because there the prophets do not speak about creation ex nihilo. They're far more interested in using battle motifs to speak about creation, God overcoming the primordial powers of darkness in creating the world, and they do so for a pastoral reason. The God who overcomes the primordial powers of darkness in creating is the same God who will overcome the enemies of God's people even in exile. The God who has won in creation is the God of the covenant, and because he has won in creation, the people in exile can take confidence in the fact that he has not forgotten them, that he will bring them home, that he will remember the covenant. And he also talks about creation as it appears in the wisdom literature and elsewhere in the Old and New Testaments. And of course, in the New Testament, particularly in places like the prologue to John and in Colossians, where the Son is incorporated into the drama of creation, and then the Spirit as well. That's important for us to notice. It's important for us to notice the variety of ways in which the Bible speaks about creation, because I think that gives us a better and more informed understanding of creatio ex nihilo, creation out of nothing. Like the doctrine of the Trinity, it seems to me that creation out of nothing is not a doctrine that you can simply read off the page of the Bible, chapter and verse. However, again, like the doctrine of the Trinity, the story of the Bible really doesn't make sense without a doctrine of creation out of nothing, a doctrine of creatio ex nihilo. So God speaks and it is. The Bible uses a variety of metaphors: God speaking, God fashioning, even God fighting with respect to creation, but all of these are bound up together in creation out of nothing. And creation out of nothing is a way to affirm creation's radical dependence upon God. Now, all of that in turn informs your discussion and essay question for the week, which reads: The doctrine of creation out of nothing describes the relationship between God and all that is not God. It makes no reference to time. Formulate a position on this using material from Odin. So, the issue at issue here is one. The issue here is one that you will run into in your pastorates fairly often, I think, in our shared context, and that's the relationship between faith and science. And there are some Christians who believe quite strongly that the Bible speaks directly to scientific matters, and it speaks directly to matters of creation. So issues about the age of the earth, the theory of evolution, dinosaurs, and all of that stuff. I think that we are wise to kind of take a step back and ask if the matter is as straightforward as some Christians seem to think, that the Bible speaks immediately, directly to these kinds of issues. And I think the doctrine of creation out of nothing, which we've kind of expanded briefly in this talk as a doctrine which suggests the radical dependence of all of creation upon God, uh, uh, the section in Odin on time, and what we've just been talking about with respect to causation. I think all of those should come together in helping us formulate an answer vis-a-vis, for example, the Big Bang Theory, the universe has a definite beginning 1,000 billion years ago, or the steady state theory, the universe has always been. Is one of these more compatible with creation out of nothing or not? Take a position, use Odin to defend your answer. I'm interested to know what you have to say about that. I'll tip my own hand in an announcement later in the week. But for now, that's all I have to say to you this week. I hope you have a good reading. I hope you have a good time writing and reflecting on these things. And I look forward to our next little chat in a week's time. Thanks, and have a good afternoon.